I'm Amanda, and my life used to be a quiet sketch of gray, a small house on the edge of a forgotten town where dreams barely flicker. Every day, I've fought to color over the gloom with splashes of hope, clinging to the love I share with my husband, Ryan, a love that once burned bright enough to light up the darkest corners. But now, a shadow has crept into our world, whispering promises of salvation wrapped in a deal so vile it churns my stomach. As bills pile up and desperation claws at my heart, I'm standing on the edge of a choice that could shatter everything I hold dear. What did I do when the devil knocked on my door with a smirk and an offer I couldn't ignore? Picture this. The world outside my window is a canvas of gray, not just from the overcast sky, but from the weight of every unspoken word I've carried for years. I'm Amanda, 34, and I've spent the better part of my life trying to paint over that gray with something brighter, something that feels like it matters. I'm not sure I've succeeded yet, but I keep trying, day after day, in a small house on the edge of a town that feels like it's forgotten how to dream. My hands are often stained with paint, literal paint, since I dabble in art when the silence gets too loud, but also with the invisible marks of a life I've built with someone who's both my anchor and my storm. That someone is Ryan, my husband of 8 years. He's 37, a man of sharp edges and quiet intensity, with eyes that can cut through you one moment and soften like dusk the next. We met in a whirlwind, back when I thought love was a straight line from heart to heart, no detours, no dead ends. He was working construction then, all rough hands and sweat-soaked shirts, and I was a waitress at a diner that smelled of grease and broken promises. There was a heat between us, undeniable, the kind that made the air crackle when he'd lean over the counter to ask for a refill, his voice low, like he was sharing a secret just for me. Even now, I can feel the ghost of those early days, the way we'd steal moments in the shadows of that diner, hands brushing in ways that spoke louder than words, igniting something fierce and unspoken. It was a dance of desire, a silent I woke up to the sound of rain tapping against the window, a dreary rhythm that matched the heaviness in my bones. As I shuffled to the kitchen in my worn-out slippers, I spotted a stack of mail on the counter, half buried under yesterday's coffee grounds. My heart sank before I even touched it. There, glaring at me from the top of the pile, was a final notice from the electric company. The red ink practically screamed, demanding $320 within 48 hours, or they'd cut us off. My chest tightened, a familiar panic clawing its way up my throat. I couldn't let Ryan see this, not yet. He's already carrying enough. So I shoved the bill under a mess of junk mail and old flyers, hiding the evidence of our unraveling life, at least for a few more hours. Breakfast was a quiet affair, the kind of silence that feels like it's holding its breath. Ryan sat across from me, his fork scraping against the plate as he pushed around the last of his eggs. He looked up, his eyes shadowed with something I couldn't quite name, and muttered about a big repair job that fell through at the last minute. His voice was low, heavy with defeat, like every word cost him something. I forced a smile, the kind that feels like it might crack my face, and told him we'd figure it out. I don't know if I believed it, but I had to say it, for him, for me, for whatever fragile thing still holds us together. Later that day, as I was wiping down the counter for the 3rd time just to keep my hands busy, there was a knock at the door. Travis. Of course it was him, Travis, standing there with that slick grin of his, the kind that always made my skin crawl just a little. A few days after that unsettling visit, I found myself alone at home, the quiet pressing in on me like a heavy fog. I was in the kitchen, rinsing out a mug, when my phone buzzed on the counter, the sound jarring in the stillness. I glanced at the screen and froze. Travis, calling me directly. That was a first. Usually he went through Ryan for whatever shady dealings they had going on. My stomach twisted as I hesitated, my thumb hovering over the answer button. Something about this felt wrong, like stepping into a trap I couldn't see, but I couldn't ignore it either. So I picked up, my voice barely above a whisper as I said, "Hello." His tone on the other end was smooth, too smooth, like oil sliding over glass. He didn't waste time with small talk, didn't bother with pleasantries. He just laid it out, cold and calculated. He knew we were drowning in debt, every last penny of it, $4,300 to be exact, and he had an offer. He'd wipe it all clean, every bill, every late notice, if I gave him something in return, something personal, something that made my breath catch in my throat, the phone nearly slipping from my trembling hand. He wanted me to share a night with him, to cross a line I never thought I'd even have to consider. I stood there, rooted to the spot in the middle of my kitchen, the hum of the refrigerator suddenly so loud it felt like it was screaming in my ears. My mind reeled, a sickening wave of shock washing over me as I tried to process his words. I stammered out a refusal, my voice cracking, but he cut me off before I could finish. "It's just a business transaction, Amanda," he said, his voice dripping with a kind of detached certainty. "Nothing personal. Ryan doesn't even have to know." My chest tightened, disgust and anger boiling up inside me, but underneath it all, there was something else. Desperation. I couldn't shake Travis's voice from my head, that cold, calculated tone slicing through me like a blade. Days passed, but the weight of his offer clung to me, a shadow I couldn't outrun. I wrestled with it in silence, torn between the life we were barely holding on to and the line I never thought I'd cross. In the end, desperation won. I called him back, my voice hollow, agreeing to meet and discuss the terms. I told myself it was just a conversation, nothing more, but deep down I knew I was stepping into quicksand. The diner we chose was on the edge of town, a rundown joint with flickering neon signs and cracked vinyl seats, the kind of place where no one looks twice at anyone, perfect for anonymity. I spotted Travis the moment I walked in, sitting in a corner booth, his posture relaxed, that smug grin plastered on his face like he'd already won. My stomach churned as I approached, my hands trembling so badly I had to shove them into my jacket pockets just to hide it. Sliding into the seat across from him felt like signing away a piece of my soul. He didn't waste time, laying out the terms in a voice so businesslike it made my skin crawl. A one-time encounter at our apartment, $4,300 wired to our account the moment it was done. No strings, no complications. I couldn't look at him as I nodded, my eyes fixed on the chipped Formica table, the sick feeling in my gut twisting tighter with every word. He leaned back, smirking, and said, "See? Easy money." I wanted to scream, to throw the greasy coffee mug at his face, but I just sat there, drowning in my own silence. When I got home, Ryan was there, sitting on the couch with a beer in hand, staring at nothing. The air between us was thick, heavy with everything we weren't saying. I didn't tell him about the meeting, couldn't bring myself to form the words, but I think he knew something was wrong. We moved through the evening like ghosts, avoiding each other's gaze, the silence louder than any argument we'd ever had. The night it happened, I felt like I was walking through a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. My feet dragged as I made my way down the narrow hallway to our bedroom, each step heavier than the last, like I was wading through thick, suffocating mud. The floorboards creaked under my weight, a jagged sound that echoed in the stillness, cutting through the haze in my mind. Behind me, I could hear Ryan's footsteps, slow and deliberate, not to stop me, not to pull me back from the edge, but to bear witness. That was Travis's condition, his sick twist of the knife. He wanted Ryan there, in the room, watching it all unfold. I couldn't look at him, couldn't face the storm I knew was brewing in his eyes, but I felt his presence like a weight on my chest, crushing me before anything had even begun. When I pushed open the bedroom door, the air inside felt stale, oppressive, like it was holding its breath along with me. A single lamp on the nightstand cast a dim, sickly yellow glow, throwing harsh shadows across the walls, turning familiar corners into something alien and menacing. I sat on the edge of the bed, my hands trembling so badly I had to clasp them together just to keep them still. My skin didn't feel like mine anymore. I was a stranger in my own body, watching myself from somewhere far away. Travis stepped into the room, his movements precise, almost clinical, like he was performing some routine task instead of tearing apart everything I held dear. He didn't speak, didn't even look at me with anything resembling warmth or humanity, just a cold, detached focus that made my stomach turn. In the corner, Ryan lowered himself into a chair, his face a mask of anguish and resignation, his hands gripping the armrests so tightly I could see the whites of his knuckles even in the faint light. He didn't look away, couldn't, bound by the same twisted rules that had dragged us here. I wanted to scream, to beg him to leave, to spare himself this, but my throat was too tight, the words trapped somewhere deep inside me. Instead, I fixed my eyes on the days after. That night felt like wading through a fog so thick I could barely see my own hands in front of me. Travis was gone by morning, as if he'd never been there at all, leaving behind nothing but the echo of his cold detachment and a notification on my phone that $4,300 had been deposited into our account. That money sat there, glaring at me every time I checked the balance, like blood money staining everything it touched. It was supposed to be our lifeline, our way out of the drowning debt, but instead, it felt like a curse, a constant reminder of what I'd traded away. I remember sitting at the kitchen table, paying off the electric bill online, the screen blurring as tears streamed down my face, silent and unstoppable. Each click felt like a betrayal, like I was sealing the fracture between Ryan and me with every transaction. The silence in our house was suffocating, heavier than it had ever been. Ryan and I moved around each other like strangers, unable to meet each other's eyes. He started sleeping on the couch, the bedroom door staying shut like a barrier neither of us could cross. I'd lie awake at night, staring at the ceiling, the empty space beside me a gaping wound. During the day, we barely spoke, the air thick with everything we couldn't say. I'd catch him sometimes, standing by the window with his shoulders slumped, lost in a torment I couldn't reach. And me? I couldn't look in the mirror without feeling a wave of shame so strong it made my knees buckle. That money might have saved us from losing the lights, but it cost us something far more precious. A week dragged by, each day slower and more painful than the last, until finally, Ryan broke the silence. We were in the living room, the TV droning in the background with some show neither of us was watching. He turned to me, his voice raw and jagged, like it had been torn from somewhere deep inside. He said he hated himself for letting it happen, for sitting there in that chair while our world shattered. He didn't know if he could forgive me or himself. His words cut deep, but I understood them. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment if you enjoyed this story. This will help us create more engaging stories for you.